Okay, I think it's recording. Okay, if at any point you can't hear me, you just indicate. So as I was saying, if it's as a joke, if you have to explain it, it's not that good. If you have to break it down for people and say, "Oh, you're supposed to do this, do that," it makes what's the word? Cognitive thinking of users very very difficult. So next one. So what is UI design and why is it so important? We cannot start anything without going through the basics. So UI design, which stands for user interface design, is a process of designing visual elements, interactions, and layout of digital interfaces. So with UI design, designers bring life to a product. You bring in life to a product. It ensures that navigating through a product, that is an app or website, or any other thing in between, because we have virtual reality, augmented reality that don't really fall in between the balance of apps or websites. So can use the general term products. So you have to ensure that it is visually pleasing and easy to do. And you have to know that a user interface can make or break a product, and it can determine if a user has a positive or negative interface. So you should know that like the role of a designer or UI designer is essentially like to create an interface that a user finds easy to use and it is what's the word uh, aesthetically pleasing. Yeah, I think I'm going to use that word a lot. Aesthetics. It has to be aesthetically pleasing. So, for example, now you eat with your eyes first. Like when you want to eat, it attracts you through your eyes. That's why you see the top chefs in the world. They have this presentation for their foods that are very very wonderful. Like growing up, I didn't like egusi because the first experience I had with it was very very bad. It looked watery. It looked like prison food. I didn't like it at all, and that's like made my mind change. Created this agenda against egusi in my mind because I eat with my eyes. So your users first see what your design is before they go on. So you should know that it's like the stylistic choices that a designer makes, the choices that you make that affect style of your product. And a lot of people say UI, UX, they have different things, but UX is usability, UI is the styles. But you should know that users care both about the usability and the likability. So if you have a very very good UX and you have horrible UI, I can assure you that you are going to have very very few users. Your retention rate is like when a person uses an app, the ability of that person to come back is the retention rate. So your retention rate for that product will be low if your UI is bad. Even if your UX is bad, the retention rate will be very low. So you should know that UI designers work hand in hand with UX designers or other part of the team. Whereas here in Nigeria, that everybody does everything. As a designer, you work with product managers, with devs, and stuff like that. But you should know that design normally should have UI designer, even someone that specifically in charge of prototypes. There should be a UX designer, there should be a UX researcher, there should be a UX strategist. But here in Nigeria, everybody just do everything at the same time. So, like one very good example of good UX and good UI I like
Sorry, the
is
network is
YouTube.
breaking.
It's breaking. Oh my god. What was the last thing I said? Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yes,
I
go ahead. I think
really
the fault is
louder.
from the.
Okay. I'll go ahead. Thank you. So, okay, what that's okay. YouTube, for example, has very good UI and UX. I think one of my favorite things about the YouTube app is like when you are watching a YouTube video, the ability to when you are scrolling through videos, you can see like screenshots from that part of the video. It gives you like this anticipation what to expect. So YouTube is a very good example of UI and UX, and is a good example that Google pays their designers very well. So let's move to the next slide. So we're going to talk about now the importance of UI design. So we have user engagement, we have user satisfaction, we have the ease of use, we have brand identity and competitive advantage. So number one for user engagement. So you should know that good UI keeps people interested and keeps them to like keep them coming back. Like I mentioned retention rates earlier. So it like encourages users to explore your product more, to interact it more, and it keeps users engaged. One example of this is it TikTok. Yes, TikTok. There's this thing they call infinity scroll. Like you never get to the end of content on TikTok. You just keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and there's still content. That's a good example of good UI and good UX. So another one is user satisfaction. Good UI can also create a positive experience. Like it supplements the not supplements, it's together with the UX design. It makes your users satisfied as they are using your product. Now the third one is ease of use, that a well done user interface can make a product easy to use. Users can easily navigate around the products. They can complete tasks easily and find what they need to use. Imagine you put this where the search button is meant to be, maybe like top right on a web app, and then you go and put it somewhere else entirely. Just as a user, if a user has to look for something like that, I can assure you they won't come back to that product. So that's one thing. And then number four, brand identity. You might ask, what's brand identity doing in UI design? Do you know that it's the UI reinforces the brand identity of a company? It incorporates the colors, the font, the asset font typography, and like visual elements. It's like an experience also for the users, that what they find on like their ads, advertisements on their social media pages is something similar to what they find on the application itself. I think a good example of that is Spotify. I think the typeface is Sego. I'm not sure. I think it's Sego UI. I'm not sure of the typeface. That's the same typeface they use on their application, on their social media posts, on their ads, on their billboards and stuff like that. And the last one here is competitive advantage. Now you should know that for example, now the fintech space is very, very tight. I've used an application before. I can't remember the name. I used it once and I deleted it. Why? The UI was bad. The UX was good, but the UI was very, very bad. It was disturbing my eyes. The color contrast, the everything was just bad. So in a already saturated field, you should like good UI is going to differentiate you from your competitors, make you better than the other people. So next one now is UI versus UX. A lot of people ask this question. Now, UI focuses on product interface. Like I said, the looks, the feels, and the functions, while UX focuses on the user journey and how to create a seamless and enjoyable experience for them. UI involves selecting colors, typography, graphics, and other visual elements, while UX involves researching, testing, and validating concepts to ensure that they meet the user's needs and expectation. So another one is UI focuses on designing elements that are consistent with the brand's identity, like I said earlier, while UX focuses on solving user problems and improving their experience, regardless of the brand identity. When you are researching for a product, the last thing on your mind is the brand identity, and the first thing on your mind is the user needs, their pain points, and stuff like that. So there's a designer, I can't remember who, I don't know if it's Nielsen or is it Norman. He said that UX is like the foundation of a building, while the UI is like the paint, the interior decoration. One is not complete without the other. You can't just put the foundation and say you are done. That's not possible. Or you can't, without the foundation, just start painting empty places. It's not possible. So UI and UX work together. They coexist. Another difference is UI deals with the aesthetics. UX deals with the user behaviors, yes, the motivations, their pain points, their needs, and they design the product to cater for the users. So UI is like the front end, yes, and UX is like the back end of design. And we should know that they both work closely with each other. Like one cannot survive without the other. Okay, if you have questions, I think we should just wait till the end of the class. We can answer the questions. So, what are you on user-centered design principles? Like we're trying to, understand it. This first class is going to be kind of short because it's an introduction, and we'll have another one tomorrow to go into stuff like that. So, according to the Interaction Design Foundation, user-centered design, or UCD, the acronym, is an iterative design process in which designers focus on the users and their needs in each phase of the design process. In UCD, design teams involve users throughout the design process via a variety of research and design techniques to create highly usable and accessible products for them. So it's a mixture of, what's the word, investigative methods, yes, you have to find out how to cater to your users, like surveys, interviews, that kind of stuff. This has UX in it also. So you have to like brainstorm, with other designers if you're in a team to understand what the user needs. It has to be user centered, based on the users. But in Nigeria, there's something we designers call Oga centered design. Oga means boss. So there was a product I was working on, and after researching, yes, I did a lot of interviews, and I like finally came out with that particular screen, 2 or 3 screens, and then Oga said, "No, this is what me I want." Mhm. So that's Oga centered design, not user centered design. So in Nigeria, we have stuff like that. So you should know that your design should be centered on your users. So what are some of these user centered design principles? So the first, you have to give priority to user needs because you are designing it for the users. So user centered design, it places the needs and expectations of the users at the center of the process, the whole design process. Like I said before, you conduct research, you understand their needs, their behaviors, their motivations, their pain points, and this is the part where you empathize with your users. This is UX, very UX related. You have to empathize with your users, put yourself in their shoes. Okay, why do they want this? Why don't they want this? But most times you have to talk to your users. You can't just put yourself in their shoes because sometimes users do what you don't expect. So speaking to them helps you know how to go about designing that product. So the second one is to involve your users, engage them. So you have to engage your users throughout the process with methods like user testing, that's towards the end of the project, and surveys and feedback from your users. Let them be involved. Let them be involved in this. So that you know that the product meets the user needs. I know that you design something that's not for that particular demographic. So, for example, now you're designing a kids app and you don't really do research, and then you end up designing something that is more streamlined to the elderly. No, you have to involve your users. So number three is to design for visibility. So you have to design products that are easy to use and navigate. If you design a product that people cannot use, what is not the use? It's just a waste of resources. You have to design intuitive interfaces and reduce the what's the word I said, their cognitive load on the users. Don't don't make them think too much. Don't stress their brain because they want to use your app. If users have to go through so much stress to just try to find something, use a particular feature, they won't come back. So you have to design for usability, provide clear and concise instructions, make it very, very clear for them. So number four here is design for a consistent experience. You know, like I mentioned earlier, under brand identity, all the touch points must be consistent from the social media to the adverts to the brand identity to the product itself. It must be consistent throughout. It must be cohesive. Like, don't disjoint it for your users. The same typeface, the same colors. Don't change things too much. You go with what the brand has. It has to be cohesive. It has to be consistent. So number five here is to iterate and refine. So you should know that user-centered design involves a process where designs are like tested and refined based on your user feedback. So this is when, let's, for example, now if you are doing A/B testing, A/B testing is when you have two. For example, now you want to create a home screen and you're not sure how you want to look. So you create one screen and create second one, which is still a home screen, or maybe slight differences. So it's without you now give it to a few people. Okay, which do you prefer, A or B or A, B, C? Most times I don't think I've ever seen up to E, but maybe A, B, C, D, something like that. And they like the most votes, you go with that. You have to design based on their feedback. You refine it. Okay, why didn't you pick B? Why didn't you pick C? Is there a reason why you picked A? Know what they are saying. So this ensures that your final product, your final app or website meets the user needs and their expectation. Because like I said before, everything you are doing is for the users. So the next one here is to prioritize accessibility. Accessibility in design is to make your products accessible to all users, regardless of their abilities or disabilities. So you have to design with accessibility in life. I say in life, sorry, in design. So you have to use, like, for example, you are designing for the elderly, maybe a pension app. You cannot use fanciful fonts. They won't like it. It won't work for them. You are designing a kids app or a kids education app. You have to use bright colors because that's what attracts children. Another example of accessibility is there's this app, they have dark mode, light mode, dark mode, and they have color blind mode that helps those that are colorblind. That is accessibility in design. So you have to use high contrast colors, visible text, make it clear for them, no confusion, just prioritize accessibility. So the next slide now, we're going to be talking about common design elements. Does anyone have any questions before I go on? Do you have any questions? I see someone raising their hand. If you have any questions, you can ask before we go on.
No, you can go on.
Okay, thank you. I'll go on. Okay, let me go back. So I'm going to be talking about common UI design elements. I know these are things you see in everyday UI designs. So number one is the buttons. I'm sure everyone here has interacted with a button in many products that they have used, even today. So you know that buttons are clickable elements, emphasis on clickable elements that trigger an action or they change the state of the product. You know, most times they are labeled with letters like here, and sometimes we have things that we call FABs, that's floating action buttons, where it's just an icon. An example is that on Twitter, that plus on the bottom right, that's an FAB, where you click on it, and sometimes it leads you somewhere else. Sometimes it brings up another, like to navigate you somewhere else. So here we have the primary and secondary. That deals with the primary and secondary colors that were chosen. So we have default, we have hover. When you hover on this default button, this is what comes on. This disabled means that no action has been carried out on it yet. That hasn't been clicked on. So this active means that has been, like, an action has been carried out, something has been done to it, and loading means is in the process. So another one is radio buttons. So radio buttons allow users to select one option, just one, from a list of choices. Now I'm going to show you checkboxes. Yes, checkboxes allow you to select one or more options from a list of choices. That's the difference between radio and checkboxes. Radio buttons allow you to select just one. Checkboxes allow you to select multiple from a list. So number 4 here is text input fields. So these allow users to enter text, numbers, or like other information into a form or a search field. And the next, we have a navigation menu. Navigation menu allows people to move in between a product, move from one place to another. Like from here, probably the person was on the home screen and you click on the navigation menu. It moves you here and you can move to your outbox, favorite, archive. It just moves you around that particular product. Number 6 here is we have icons. So icons are graphical representations of an object, of an action, or an idea. For example, now this is an airplane, that is an object. This is an action. Running is an action. This hat is an idea. So other common UI elements we have are drop-down menus, the one you click on and then other things come down, allows users to select from a group of actions also. What else do we have? We have sliders, the way you adjust a value, like on Jumia, when you want to like, filter your search and you want to put it in between a particular price range. We also have progress bars, like it shows the status or the, like, how many tasks you have completed and like how much is left, I think. Let's move to the next one. We're going to the UI patterns, common UI design patterns. So these are stuff that have been tried and tested over and over again, that they've been used for decades, literally, and they are working. So we start with tabs. Excuse me. So tabs are used to organize content into different categories or sections. Like here we have, these are 2 tabs, the purchases and the wish list. You can organize them into sections. So next we have the cards. They are UI elements used to display information and other content. So modular UI elements. So here we have title, secondary text, body text, and a few filter chips here. So those are cards. The next ones are carousels. I think the best way to describe carousels is IG. The way you swipe to your right to view other stuff. Those are carousels. They used to display a series of images or contents, and you can like cycle through it by swiping or by clicking on an arrow. Self. Those are carousels. Another one here is modals. Modals are like temporary UI elements that they appear on the main interface when you click on something, and they either provide additional information or allow you to perform actions. Like here, are you sure you want to do this entry? If this is an action, another it can be information, but this particular one is an action, yes or no. So another common element is pagination. Pagination is like used to break up lists or like long stuff into smaller sections, like one, two, three, four, five. This here, that is the pagination. It like takes you through long and different contents and breaks it down to you to like manageable sections so you can navigate through it easily. So another one we have here are the search bars. They guide users through a series of steps. They like take you to a particular part of that product. So other elements you have are like progress trackers, and they show you how far you have gotten to completing a particular task or a series of tasks. We have hamburger menu. Like most times, I think these are the for websites the top right. So those three lines, those are hamburger menus. They can be collapsed and they can be like, closed. So this we're coming like very close to the end. Like I said, this is just an introduction today. We'll be coming into design thinking. Design thinking. So what is design thinking? According to the Interaction Design Foundation, which is one of the major voices of design, design thinking is a non-linear, iterative process that teams use to understand users, challenge assumptions, redefine problems, and create innovative solutions to prototype and test. So, design thinking is it's a creative problem solving approach, and you can use it to address problems and find solutions. You have to understand the needs of a user, like I said before, like define the problem, generate ideas, prototyping, testing, stuff like that. And so I think there are steps to design. So these are the phases of design thinking. I'm sure a lot of us have heard this before. What are the phases of design thinking? Empathize, define, ideate, prototype, test. It's something that is common knowledge, kind of. So for a long time, I just knew these steps, but I didn't know what they mean, and I couldn't apply it to my design. So number one, you empathize. Empathize. So the first step is to empathize with the users. Like I said earlier, you have to understand their needs. Put yourself there. Okay, why? Like what is the issue here? You have to know their motivations, their pain points. Like have a like understanding of the user's perspective. Put yourself in their shoes. Know how they will try to experience the product. Most times this is difficult because designers tend to fall in love with their designs and find it difficult to criticize their own designs. But you have to do this because it's not for you. It's not designer centered. It is user centered. So you can do this with like interviews, observation, and user testing. So number two is define. Now that you know the problem, you define the problem. Like you have an idea of the problem, you define it. So the information you've gathered from your research, your interviews, your surveys, you put it together and create a problem statement that clearly defines that problem that you want to solve. That your problem statement must be very concise. It must be specific. It must be relevant to the user's need. I think I have an example of a case study I worked on. I want to show us the problem statement. This case study is available on my portfolio, my Behance portfolio, if you want to look at it. Now look at this problem statement. I created it for a parking app. So I said in urban areas around the world are facing a growing challenge when it comes to finding parking spaces because more people living and working in cities, demand for parking has soared, leading to longer search times and higher costs for drivers. Problem is compounded by the fact that many cities do not have sufficient parking to meet demand, leading to competition for spaces and frustration for drivers. That is a problem statement. Make it clear, make it obvious, make it relevant to the users. It is for the users. Make it actionable. The problem here is that there are no parking spaces. That means, okay, what's the solution? You do something that can help people create parking spaces. Now, this is the solution, possible solution. The Package app was developed to address this problem by offering users the ability to find and reserve parking spaces in real time using their mobile device, provides users the opportunity to find parking spots easily, locations, prices, and other information about their parking location. That is a problem statement, and that is a solution statement, if I can call it that. So you have to, define this problem, define it. So number 3 here is ideate. You have defined the problem. So what's the next step? You generate ideas to try to solve that problem. You brainstorm, you come up with like solutions to that problem. You generate as many ideas as possible and you pick the best. Think out of the box. Nobody's restraining you. You can use stuff like what's the word, sketching, rapid prototyping to be able to go through this process. So number 4 is prototype. Now that you've gotten your ideas together, you prototype it. So you can create like low fidelity representations. That's like wireframe, lo-fi wireframes. And you have to create. So the goal of this is to like create something tangible, a physical representation of the idea. Like, okay, you've brought it to life so that you can test it and then refine it, take it through refining process, make it better. But let it be on ground after you brought the idea. Let's have something we can work with, and you keep iterating and you make changes based on user feedback. So the 5th and the final phase here is to test. You have to test prototype with your users, the people that you created and you researched for. You have to test it with your users. So you get feedback from users on the prototype. It's not like we are creating a product for the elderly, and when you are doing usability tests, take it to children. That's very, very wrong. So at this point, you have to get solution to user needs where your product can be finally implemented and like be live. So you should know that design thinking is user centered. It is human centered. It encourages creativity, collaboration, and if you follow these 5 stages or phases, you can easily develop solutions that like address the needs of the user. So that's that for this class today. So if you have any questions, you can speak now if you have any questions.